Welcome to Colonel Convos with Manini. A spoiler alert. Communication is the key to healthy relationships. And when I talk about healthy relationships, I mean all relationships in all spheres, in marriage, friendship, business, school, wherever it may be that you are. Communication is very healthy. So, rewind back, I'm 6 years old, a 6-year-old Manini. Communication to me was very important because for a 6-year-old Manini, it was very important that people know how I felt, especially my family. But with my mom and dad and brother, I had different ways of communicating with them. My brother, no communication at all. With my dad, I was still trying to find my feet. But with my mom, she was the one person I knew how to communicate with. And not verbal communication, it was written word. So 3 or so weeks ago, she showed me 2 letters that I'd written to her. There's a million of them, just by the way. But she showed me 2 specific ones. The one was a letter about my birthday. So I wanted a gift from her on my birthday, but I knew she didn't have money. So I wrote to her and said, it's my birthday, or my birthday is coming up, but I know you don't have money. However, I would like a gift. Even chocolate will do, So obviously it's not in this type of English, it's in a 6-year-old type of English. But the one that hit me the most, and she did tell me that she cried after reading the letter, was when I wrote a letter to her and I said, why don't you and dad just divorce? Because if you guys divorce, we will be happier. There'll be peace in this house. I won't have to hear you yelling. And I actually said something like, you coming back from work and you're angry and I can't have a good time with my mother, something like that. But I know I was very open and very truthful. Fast forward to high school, being a teenager. I was very confrontational, but it was not in a healthy way. I'd always want to communicate just so I'm heard, not to hear what anyone else has to say or how they felt, but it's only when I felt like I was wronged. I'm like, okay, we need to fix this. And then we fast forward to my 20s till now. I just shut down when I have to communicate. Whenever I feel like something needs to be spoken about, I just don't know how to. But you see, that's the problem with us, is we wait for things to go wrong for us to communicate. We wait for things to be awkward and weird for us to state how we feel. But it's always healthy to just communicate in general, just to find out how someone is doing, just to find out if the space is still safe and, if we're okay. So being me now, having the difficulty to communicate actually really kills me, because my surroundings, I'm surrounded by people that love to iron things out. I'm surrounded by people that love to talk. So, and not that I want them to dig stuff out of me, but it's just hard for me to communicate. Why? Number one, and I'm not sure if you're going through the same thing, but one is because I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid that my view is not valid enough. I'm afraid that my hurt is petty, because that's what I've always been told, I'm afraid that, if I tell them how I feel or how I perceived what they said to me, they're going to judge me, And yet, my circle of friends now, or the people I'm close to now, are just trying to get me to a point of, no, but let's talk about this. You're not okay. Or what happened? Maybe I said something wrong. Or maybe, okay, I'm hurt, Manini, and I want you to hear what I'm saying. There's one thing about communication that I've realized, and I've learned this from university, is that usually when someone speaks to us, we listen not to understand, but we listen to retaliate. And that is the one problem that we have across relationships. Whenever someone has a point to make, we always are very attentive, but subconsciously, or consciously rather, we we are thinking of points to give back now. I want to fight back to what you're saying. So that's been me. I've been that type of person. I listen to retaliate because I never want to be in the wrong. And maybe that's the one problem I find hard with communicating. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be in the wrong. And whenever we're going to communicate, it should never be when I'm not okay. Why are we communicating when I'm not okay? But I'm being taught now that you talk in and out of season. When you're happy, you communicate. When you're sad, you should communicate too. And there are keys of communication, but most keys of communication are usually about business and how to communicate with your boss and how to communicate. But I've found that most communication has a foundation, and one is just to understand how we think, to understand how one thinks your counterpart, or to understand how they feel. And it shouldn't always be when something is wrong. So, for example, at home, right? Yeah, the thing is, I'm trying now to put together how the communication at home goes. I know a few families that have communication time before dinner or after dinner, and that's to iron things out. I don't have that at home, and that is a culture that I want to have for my family in the future. That when something is not right, yes, you'll understand that I'm your mother, I'm your parent, so you should respect me in the way you approach me. But we should iron things out. So just an example, just to cover what I'm trying to say. My first episode was about my relationship, right? So when we talk about the communication of that, now that was one place I do not want to go back to, because I took the step to talk about it. I'm like, okay, parents, so this is what's happening. This guy, this, that. Their retaliation or the response to that was very calm at the moment. Okay, so that's what's happening. Okay, my view is, my dad was like, my view is this. I don't think this is good. And my mom, the same thing. I even thought they had a conversation together. But later on, throughout the relationship, I felt alienated. I was like, but why am I not being sat down with? Why are they not? I took the liberty to talk to them about it. Why aren't they talking to me about it? Why are they going? Why am I getting a phone call from this person and that person and that person? I would have just loved. I think the one thing I love about communication is when someone asks you, what do you think about it? How do you feel? At that point, I was longing for that. And only one person asked me that question. So because I was judged and all of that and everything was happening, now I took that type of communication into all my relationships. So whenever I feel I'm wrong, I just shut down because I feel I'm going to be judged. No one is going to want to know how I feel. And this is something I'm learning from quite a few of my friends. It's a sit down, time to say, let's talk. How are you? And another thing also about communication I've learned is nothing that is said over the phone will ever be as clear as you want it to be. So I'm a text type of person. I write more. I'm a writer. So when I write, I feel like all my emotions are out there. All my feelings are mentioned. I can tell you how I feel. But if I have to put it into words, then I leave some things out. So I need you to just comment below. Think about the type of person that you are in communication and let me know, are you a typer or are you a confrontational person? Are you the one who initiates talk or communication, or do you wait to be called? For me, right now, because I'm still learning, I'm the one that's going to sit and say, yeah, something is wrong, but I'll just wait for them to come to me, which is very bad. So I know what type of communicator I am, but I'm learning how to. And the circle of friends that I am, actually, I'm going to make an example now, are teaching me. In marriage, communication in all spheres of our lives are different. I cannot communicate with one friend of mine how I communicate with the other. And the same goes for me. Communicating in marriage or in a relationship is not going to be the same as how I would communicate with my boss. I'm sure you know that. It's very simple. But I actually want to, what is ukungala in English? If you guys can, because I want to mention it now in English, but I don't know what it is. So, mina ngumuntu ongalayo. If things don't go my way, I'm like, or if I feel like you've hurt me, I just don't like talking things out. So I just leave. But there are friends of mine that I'm learning from in marriage that you don't just leave. You actually doesn't matter how irritated you are or agitated you are or angry you are, but we're going to talk it out. Then I'm like, but what if I don't want to talk about it? Like, what if I want to take a walk first and cool down before I talk? Or what if I want to go for a swim or have some coffee before we talk? And maybe that is what we need to learn about communication, the dynamics of it, that we are not the same. Hence, we will not communicate the same. Our background has everything to do also with how we communicate. So yes, we might be in a friendship or in a relationship, and at your home, you're taught to iron things out now. Okay, you ate my fish in the fridge. Why? Let's talk about it now. I'm not happy. Yet, I am taught, or rather I've learned something that I need to unlearn, that you take time in mentioning your hurt and your pain and whether I've been offended. So give me time to do that. So the one important thing I can say is learn how you communicate, your communication skills, and work at them. And also try and understand the next person, that we might not communicate the same. I think the one thing that I dislike about social media is how communication is run across, right? It's like how this culture of, hi, how are you? I'm good. You're just saying it because you want to get your point across. But I'd like us to learn how to ask honestly and intentionally, deliberately how someone is feeling. So instead of just saying, hi, how are you? To get an I'm fine and we move on. You're going to challenge yourself to go to your close circles and actually find out how they're doing. So you're not pestering them, but it's a way of communicating healthily. So you ask them, how are you? And if you get an I'm fine, you're like, no. Like, I mean, how are you doing? And maybe that can be the first step to our communication. And after that, then we learn how to understand one another. Learn how to listen, not to retaliate, not to respond, but to, to support, to understand how the next person feels. Be it in a relationship, a love relationship, a marriage, parent to child. I know that I'm mostly challenged in the parent to child relationship. But I am learning. My mom talks. My mom is open. But the thing is, our communication has always been, don't do this because this. Don't do this. So don't sleep with boys because you get pregnant. Don't, my dad is, if you don't study, you'll fail. It's never been let's sit down. How are you feeling? Why haven't you been doing your assignments? Why haven't you, are you single? Are you happy in your... I'd love my parents to ask me if I'm happy. Because they know I'm single, but I just want them to ask me, how are you feeling? But anyway, so I'm learning. I struggle with communication. And I told you, as I said before, it's because I feel, one, I'll be judged. Two, the truth will be known, because the truth is never nice. It's always bitter. But it's something I'm learning. And I'd like you to share with me also, if it's easy for you to communicate. Are you an easy communicator, or we have to drag you out of the pits and the mud for you to start talking? And it's just very healthy to communicate, because I did say in the beginning, communication is the key to healthy and successful relationships. And that is the culture that we must learn, and also unlearn what our parents and great-grandparents had taught us, if they taught us to not communicate at all. And appreciate the friends that actually teach you how to communicate healthily, constructive communication and constructive arguing. Thank you for watching.